We have a North Dakota man. This just happened. He was arrested for running over a teen. And the reason why he ran over this teen, according to him, was that the teen was a Republican extremist.
I don't understand the differences.
41-year-old Shannon Brent had a tough time understanding the charges against him, vehicular homicide and leaving the scene of a deadly accident.
He's actually the one that called 911 to report the crash.
Police say it happened in this alley around 2:30 Sunday morning after the street dance. Court papers show Brent told the 911 dispatcher that he just hit Kayler Ellingson because the teen was part of a Republican extremist group and was calling people to come get Brent after a political argument.
I have several problems with this. All right. He was charged with vehicular homicide, fleeing the scene. Good. First problem, released on $50,000 bail. That shouldn't happen. Okay?
Yeah, ran somebody down. By the way, this guy called his mom just before being killed in the accident, trying to figure out, like, do you know this guy that I'm being chased by?
Right.
Can you believe that? Can you imagine getting that phone call as a parent?
Right.
Scared out of your mind, running from somebody?
Yep. Oh, but remember how I've talked about this for a long time? Hey, when you dehumanize your political opposition, when you other them, let's say people who don't wear masks, let's say people who maybe don't get vaccinated, let's say people who maybe have questions about any, at some point, hypothetical election, right? When you dehumanize them, when you say we need to fight back against these extremists in this country, and you're talking about 50% of the country, when you compare them to Nazis repeatedly, guess what? It makes it okay to treat them inhumanely. And here's something else. This is a combination of not only do we have bail that is way too low at $50,000. I think the bail should be no bail.
Yeah.
I think he kills. I think it should be none right now. Certainly not that quickly. But this is also combined with the entitlement mindset, which shouldn't be surprising, considering that the murderer was a liberal. He wasn't even able to understand why he would have to post that kind of bail. Here's a quote from Brent. I have a job, a life, and a house, and things that I don't exactly want to see go by the wayside. Family that are very important to me. Guess what? That kid was family that was important to someone else, you entitled little prick.
Yeah. Bring that quote back up for me for just a second. Second thing right there. A life. He doesn't have it anymore.
Right.
The thing that you say that you have, your job, your life, you just stop right there at the second point. He doesn't have it anymore, so you don't get to have, maybe some freedom for a little while until we sort this out.
Right. And, he's saying this is justification. And again, this is a problem we have a problem with bail. We have a problem with catch and release with prisoners, with violent, hardened criminal. The goal of the left is to turn these criminals into voters and to turn you into a criminal. For example, if maybe you happen to have a gun that has too many rounds in the magazine, right? They want you to be a criminal. And people like this get released. I have a job, I have a life, and a house. It's the entitlement mindset that is tied up in this. I want him jobless, penniless, homeless, lifeless.
And bailless.
You know what? We'll give him a home. It's got bars. They got all kinds of people in there. They tend to yell a lot. It's a lot of commotion, stuff like that goes on. Maybe,
angry, raging erections.
Fresh fish gets yelled.
Home is what you make it.
No, he admitted to enough that bail shouldn't be on the table.
He called 911. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
so you feel bad about chasing this kid down and running him over. I don't know if the kid was in a car, if the kid was on foot. I don't know the story there, but you basically just admitted that you did it.
Right, of course you did.
That's a death penalty case.
Political violence is also something we need to discuss, right? The left has wanted you to believe that political violence is being perpetrated by the right. That's why, and we'll get to, I don't know, whichever FBI director, I don't know who we'll talk about later. Is it Milley?
It's General
Milley. Where they want to use words like destroy the Capitol, assault the Capitol. When you're really talking about, a few dozen, let's say a couple hundred people, most of whom were invited in, and only person who was shot was someone who was entering the Capitol by the police. They want you to see that as emblematic of political violence in this country. Now, here's the thing. The question, like I said yesterday, is, and I want you to ask yourself this question, and I would love it if you could comment below. This is why we provide all the references at louderwithcrowder.com. Is if you ask yourself the question, and I would like to see you in real time ask the question as you watch the show, what is the strongest argument that my political opposition will present? And how do you cut it off at the pass? The strongest argument that your political opposition presents is January 6th. They say political violence is coming from the right. Really? Why? January 6th. Do you have anything stronger? They don't. They'll give you a list of a few white shooters, of course, but there are far more mass shooters by the definition until they changed it, who are African American because it's mostly inter-gang related in urban areas. The argument that they present is January 6th. If there's a stronger one, I'd love to hear it. Well, here's the truth. The 2020 riots, they were the most destructive ever in this country, okay? The peaceful riots, you had 25 people who were dead. You had more than 60,000 officers who were injured. You had at least $2 billion in damages. These were the claims, and these were only the claims that were made a few months after.
Yeah.
We can't find the updated claims. These are just, I believe, insurance claims, if I'm not mistaken. You can go and find this at Axios. I don't even necessarily know that counts the government spending that they had to put into repairing infrastructure.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to bet the estimate is significantly higher.
Yeah.
Just sort of like the DOJ, since they stopped reporting interrace-related crime statistics beyond a certain year.
Yeah.
They just stopped reporting the claims. So you're talking about dozens dead, tens of thousands of officers injured. You're talking about billions of dollars in damages, and they were encouraged by this administration. And the counter argument that the left points is January 6th. This, what you are seeing right now, is this is 26 dead if you were just to take the riot numbers.
Yeah. And we're not going to focus on that at all. We're focusing on the billions of dollars in damages. The media is not going to cover that when they talk about January 6th and the damages for that, right? They're not going to juxtapose those two things. They're just saying this is the worst attack in history on democracy, except for the several other times in history that there's been attacks on that building that were far worse. By the way, if you've done your history, we talked about it on the show. But go beyond that. The communities are still destroyed. Not everybody has insurance.
Right.
Not everybody has the ability to rebuild. Not everybody then had a job to go to the next day after their job was burned to the ground.
Largely black communities.
Right? Largely black communities that have still never recovered. The lingering effect on those communities is crazy. And by the way, what do you think happens when you burn a city down and you feel like you're surrounded by people who disagree with you and you're conservative? You're like, moving somewhere else, those places are still crap holes. Right. Conservatives got out.
Yep.
The only people holding back the tide were like, okay, you don't want us as cops? You don't want us as people owning businesses here? Sayonara. See you later.
Yeah.
We're out.
You know what? That actually brings me to something I want to mention really quickly. Because everyone knows, look, we talked about the Derek Chauvin trial, obviously, with Floyd. I don't think that he killed him. We've talked about that with George Floyd. I don't think that he did. I think it was the speedball. That being said, we talked about how Chauvin, probably looking at his history, sketchy at best. I don't think he was wrong that day if you look at the full footage. Okay, but let's assume that you don't like him. All right. I'd like to bring something up that a lot of people haven't discussed because you've moved on. Remember Mike Brown? Remember Hands Up, Don't Shoot?
Right.
You remember that shit? Pardon my language, but I mean that shit. That crock of steaming, corn-infested horse shit. Because his hands weren't up. It wasn't a hands up, don't shoot. His hands were on a cop's gun, and he was repeatedly assaulting a police officer. That officer, going by rote, I think his name was Darren Wilson. A lot of people don't know this about Darren Wilson. He had been on the force for a while. He could have picked his spot. He could have picked a cushy job. He picked working in Ferguson, in a very bad area, because he said, you know what, these people, meaning these people in these crime-ridden areas, and largely African-American, we need to build trust with this community. And I think I could be doing more good if I go in as a white officer. And people in that community, what this media never told you is he was actually one of the few cops who was loved and was trusted. He could have picked a cushy job where he was giving out speeding citations. And instead, he chose to serve in a war zone.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.